The Plainsman. It was an idea. It was a children's TV show. It was entertainment. It was affirmation of our values. For Warren Anderson, it was a brush with show business. But the impact of the Plainsman, Warren Anderson, went past the new medium of broadcast television. It was real life.
I was down at Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi. Then it was about 12 o'clock at night, and I was on a bus going back to my barracks. And I was the only one on the bus, and the bus driver asked me, he said, "Where are you from, Airman?" And I said, "Well, I'm from Amarillo." I said Abilene, but I said, "But I was raised in Amarillo." He said, "Really?" He said, I lived in Amarillo for a while." I said, "Well, I'm the Plainsman's son." He said, I tried to buy your dad's house 3 times. He said, "You're Warren Anderson's son?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I am." Carries far and wide the Plainsman's name.
It's funny because when I moved here to Fort Worth, there was a gentleman here and he was my boss, and we were talking about Amarillo, and I told him who my dad was, and he goes, "They were shooting something up in Claude or somewhere where he lived," and he said there was a snowstorm, and I sat on your dad's lap. And he said, "I remember him to this day." Everybody knew who he was, so, we felt like movie stars. It was just like an honor, to even be with him, because not just being the Plainsman, but he was a wonderful person. He's been gone 40 years now, and we still miss him every day.
He really wasn't the Plainsman to me. He was my dad, and I looked up to him. I respected him.
I just remember watching him and wanting to watch him and wanting to be with him, and, he was real tall, in my opinion, and when he had on the outfit that he wore, I just thought he was the coolest thing there ever was. So, but it's just something in my life that's very special, and we were lucky enough to have just the greatest family life, and I think that was part of it, was his tenure with Plains Dairy, because they showed a lot of faith in him, and he always wanted to give 100%. So,
if it hadn't been for Plains Creamery, I wouldn't have had the great life I had. So I'm very thankful. And I'm very thankful for all the milk and ice cream and everything we got in the refrigerator. And, I
want to say he had the time of his life during that time.
My dad came from very strict parents. You didn't scrape your fork on your teeth. If you put your elbows on the table, you were sent to your room. And that's what made the 50s great, because we did respect our parents, and we idolized our parents, and we still do to this day. And our mother just passed, and she loved him like nobody's business. I mean, they never fought. They just complimented each other from that very first day.
He's always been a ham. And later on in life, he did several little theater plays, and he was in the movie HUD with Paul Newman. He had one line. His nephew's in town, and he's looking for HUD. And my dad is sweeping glass off the sidewalk in front of a bar. And Brandon DeWitt says, "Looks like you had quite a brawl in here last night." And my dad says, "I had HUD in here last night is what I had." And that's all he says. And he goes, "Looks like it." And Dad sort of just went, like that kind of thing. He loved to make people laugh. And we lived, on Broadway on the way to the TV station. And we had people at our house 24/7. We never knew who was going to be there or, what we would wake up to.
He would memorize scripts, for movies, little theater, while sitting at the dinner table. He had perfect memorization. And he had all this talent, and he could type. And I mean, all these things, and still be a dad, plenty of time to be a dad, and to be a star. We loved going down to the Palo Duro Canyon in the summer, and Underwood's Barbecue would cater down there. And we'd sing, and we'd build a big campfire, and we had a really great time. But we did that at our house. you know. And we had Duke at our house, the horse, you know, he was there sometimes. And like Barbara said, we never knew who was going to be at our house, day or night. I was pretty much in love with Roy Orbison, and I'm not saying that he took my dad's place, but, you know, my priorities were my 45s in my bedroom, and, you know, but I knew that my mom was happy, and I knew that my dad made her happy. I don't remember the scenario. I think once they got married, they went to California, and then he got a job in Iowa, because I think he was working at the airplane plant out of Burbank right after the war. And they had a one-bedroom apartment. Bed came out of the wall. No TV, no nothing. Some mother darned his socks. So then she got them all darned, and he woke up and she said, honey, I did. He said, I don't wear darn socks. You know? And but he always had a sense of humor.
They rode in every parade as the Plainsman and Bull. Gloria mentioned the saddle that he had. It was black with silver inlay everywhere. And I'm sure it ended up at the Boys Ranch with Duke. And at 16, Duke went to the Boys Ranch. He's buried there with the monument at Cal Farley's Boys Ranch. Dad rode in every rodeo as the Plainsman, at Will Rogers with the Will Rogers Range Riders, Cal Farley's, and he used to ride in the Tri-State Fairgrounds at those rodeos. I don't know if they went to the rodeos or not. I don't remember them, but I went to all of them. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being in his shadow.
And the other thing that I was totally impressed with, where I felt I was Warren Anderson's daughter, the Plainsman's daughter, were the telethons. And you see all these little kids, and I have chill bumps, you see all these little kids, and they got their piggy banks. All they want to do is hand their piggy bank to the Plainsman. He couldn't get enough of being the Plainsman because he loved what the Plainsman stood for.
You were asking about the toast. I'll never forget it. Get your milk. And they hold a glass up, and it was, here's to you, partners. And they were his partners.
It was just the thing in the 50s. That's what you did, was drink your milk and brush your teeth.
I'm not positive, but if my memory serves, Plains Creamery came to Dad and said, let's do this show. Dad was an announcer. He was a terrific announcer. There was a cowboy called Snuffy something around Amarillo at the time. And I think that's where Plains got the idea, because I think Snuffy was before on KGNC. But I remember Dad going to New York City as the Plainsman with lawyers from Plains Creamery, because they owned the name the Plainsman. And when NBC came out with The Law of the Plainsman with Michael and Sarah as Sam Buckhart, they sued them. Plains Creamery, Channel 10, CBS sued NBC. Dad got a plane trip and $300.
And that's me. That's me and Warren. And that's the set. I painted that picture of the ranch house in the background. I painted that. Anyway, look at that. Just stupid as I could be.
Why is that a bald eagle sitting by your side on the?
It was a stuffed eagle.
Yeah.
And I'd pet the thing usually during the. Look at me looking at that harmonica, yeah. I think that was Herb Schreiner. He was kind of a network type personality, and I think he played the harmonica and he did entertainment and things like that. And Evidently, he came to visit, kind of like Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, came for some reason and all. Anyway, it's got me on here, and I look like a little old kid, just out of high school maybe. And old Warren Anderson over there, he was sure a good guy. He'd come into the art room nearly every day and sit down and visit, and we'd laugh and do more small talk. And then he'd go on his way, and sometimes he was on the booth doing just the announcements, reading what came in, the commercials and things like that. And he would do that during the day. And he was there most of the day. And then we'd go on at 5 o'clock, from 5 till 5:30. We just went in and hit it cold. Anyway, we just showed cartoons, and we just had a little small talk in between cartoons, and then we'd introduce the commercial, and then do a cartoon, and then come back and maybe do a commercial. It was a fun time, but like I say, it was totally unrehearsed. We just went in, got on camera, and did small talk.
When he started there, I believe he was selling time, commercial time. And he did a lot of different kind of commercials and things like that. And then he also did the weather for Dan True when he wasn't there on the weekends.
He would go to the airport. He'd take a glass map, paper map, masking taped to a piece of glass. And they'd take it out there and they'd mark on it, and then they'd go back to the station and do the weather.
He liked to help people, but he was also really comfortable in front of a camera and really enjoyed, doing things like that. So,
as far as I can determine, some of the nicest people were plains riders. They instilled good values. Brush your teeth, drink your milk, wash your hands.
The Plainsman was a fictional character, but Warren Anderson was real. His efforts to do good for himself and his family are so tied to the fictional character, the Plainsman, it's hard to separate one from the other.
His name, the Plainsman, as long as Plains Creamery is around, will live forever.
When you've got the best, it's plains to see.